This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. How are you? How's everybody out there doing? I am recording this from a mediocre hotel room out in Chicago. By the time you hear this, it will have already happened, but I'm playing a show here tomorrow night. And look, I built my whole career out here in Chicago. This is where I came up. This is where it all started to happen for me. So every time I get to come back here, I just love it. My heart is still here. Of course, me being here to play this show means that I'm not in Vegas. I'm not doing EDC this year. For everybody who's out there, I hope you had a great time. Always so much fun out there. And hopefully I'll see you out there next year. So look, I've got Adventure Club on the show today. Big episode. They've got a new song out right now with Crankdat and Krewella called Next Life. I'm going to put a link to that in the description of this episode. You can also follow that link to get all their tour dates, music, everything they're up to. And I'm going to throw Next Life into the Back to Bangers playlist on Spotify. There's a link for that too if you check it. That's the playlist that I update every single week with brand new music from the show, from my guests, myself. So definitely go check that out as well. And look, the guys in Adventure Club are some of my favorite people to talk to. Every time I run into them, we can kind of just fall into the groove really easily. Like-minded people, we're all huge nerds. We talked about a lot. We covered a lot of ground. I'm going to tell you more about it in just a minute. Before I do, I want to let you know that we are brought to you today by my friends over at Serato. And if you've been listening the last few weeks, you've been hearing me talk a lot about Serato. You know them. They've been making high-quality products for DJs and producers for years and years. I've used their products for over 10 years now, but today I want to talk to people who might not even be DJs. Anyone out there who loves this music but has never really tried it out. Look, if you want to just have some fun, Serato has got you covered. You can go to Serato.com and check out their Serato DJ Lite software. If you've always wondered about DJing but never really knew where to start, this is the perfect place to go. Serato DJ Lite, you can start for free, download everything for free. You can learn the basics of DJing really fast, just off of your laptop. It's really easy to just start messing around and having fun right off the bat. You can use the music that you've got on your computer already. Serato's also integrated with SoundCloud, so you can actually DJ songs off of SoundCloud, which is really cool. And if you find yourself getting really into it, you really like it, all Serato hardware is really affordable. The entry point is really low. It's great. It's reliable. So go check it out. Serato.com and, have some fun, play around with some music. It's why we're all here. All right, so for this conversation with Adventure Club, I met up with them in Washington, D.C. They were finishing up a big tour, and we actually recorded this interview on the tour bus right before the show. And, the tour bus environment, there's a little background noise. There's people moving around. So you're going to hear, just some stuff in the background a little more than you normally would. If it sounds a little funny to you, just imagine, we're all sitting there on the tour bus. The show is happening. I think it just adds to the vibe of the conversation we were having. And for the first half of this conversation, you're just going to be hearing me talking to Layton, one half of the group. And then about halfway through, Christian comes back in. He got stuck out at a dinner that ran really long. So we end the conversation with Layton and Christian. It's kind of a great reunion. You can hear their chemistry. I think they're one of my favorite duos in dance music, just because you can really tell how much they love each other, how much they enjoy each other's company. And it's just nice to see. We cover a lot of ground. We talk about how they stay healthy on tour, how they take care of themselves and each other. And, something else I wanted to really dig into is just how long they've been holding it down for the dubstep scene, but they've kind of managed to blaze their own trail in that. They've got a really strong signature sound, and I think they're able to kind of cover a lot more ground musically than maybe some of their peers. Let me know what you think of this episode. Let me know if you have any questions, concerns, comments, just in general about the show. If you have other guests you'd like to hear from, my email is backtobackpod@gmail.com, or you can hit me on all social media at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod. So let's get into this right now. This is me and Adventure Club, back to back. Let's go. I feel like that's actually a pretty good place to start, is talking about like tour rituals and tour life. Because if you're going to, you actually kind of did just blow my mind saying you go to Fogo de Chao every night when possible.
So if it's in the city, and as long as it's in like within like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how hungry we are, Christian and I will go to Fogo de Chao and we will sit there for an hour until like we cannot eat any more beef. We skip like the potatoes, we skip like those delicious breads, and the caramelized bananas, and we just sit there and eat the house special, the picanha.
Okay.
We try to do maybe like 3 hours before the set.
Okay, so then you can maybe even knock out, take a nap or something.
Yeah, once you take, I feel like no matter how tired you are before a set, once you take that nap, it's game over for you. You're going to wake up, you're going to be super groggy. You're going to be worse off than if you've never taken that nap.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so then what do you do, man? Because I mean, for me, I don't even eat meat anymore. But back when I did, like, I love Fogo de Chao. But I feel like that's almost like a DJ meme. It's like if you go and you eat, a giant platter of meat before the show.
It's like when you go to Texas for your first time, and you're like, oh my God, there's so much delicious barbecue out here.
That's what I miss the most.
And everyone does it. Rookie mistake number one. And I'm pretty sure 95% of us repeat that mistake every single time we go out there.
You just don't learn.
You just don't learn. You're like, whatever, Salt Lake, no problem.
Yeah. But for you, what's the secret you figured out? I mean, you just did it tonight.
Secret. The secret is you just don't do it.
But you do it.
But we do it. I mean, like, that's like we just don't learn.
So you just get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. And sometimes we try to skip it altogether.
Yeah.
But
you guys are super. I think of you guys as being super healthy in general. I mean, I know you're like a gym rat.
We're gym rats, and we might seem like a bit we have like super contrarian ideas when it comes to health. Like, I mean, a vegan or like vegetarian diets are they're seen as super healthy diets, and like we're kind of like that, just on the meat side of things.
Yeah.
We don't see cholesterol as a demon. We don't see like saturated fats as demons. Like, we get our blood tested. We get our blood work done. I think for like 2 months straight, I ate like 12 eggs a day, a pack of bacon, and a ribeye, and my blood levels were the best they'd ever been.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it has something to do with like when you start mixing those with like all the processed foods. That's when the processed foods are really going to start harming your body. But if you're only sticking to like quote unquote a caveman diet, I think you'll be okay.
Right.
We also got our blood types tested, our blood tested, and Christian and I have different intolerances to different ingredients in food, or like micronutrients.
Oh, they can tell you that?
Yeah. So something as simple as like paprika will set Christian off, and it'll make him like give him like an allergic reaction. Yeah. And something as simple as like raw carrots versus cooked carrots will set me off.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's not like we can't eat these things. They'll just make us feel a bit more drowsy than.
So you've been able to kind of hone in on exactly, like, you've almost got it down to a science, like what's best for your body.
Exactly.
That's wild, man. Have you always been interested in like the science of health like that?
I have. Since I was younger. When I was a bit younger, I was pretty overweight.
Yeah, same actually.
And I kind of grew out of it. I didn't put conscious effort into growing out of it. I just grew up, and maybe around college I got skinny. And ever since that point, I never wanted to go back to the way I looked or felt.
Dude.
And since then, it was just a study.
This? Not to cut you off, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately because it's just come up in my own life. So I used to be, a long time ago, I was a little overweight. And I think they call it body dysmorphia. Like, even though I know that like I'm pretty trim now.
You know, because like your clothes, the sizing of your clothes, they make sense. You're small, like you're medium. You're not in these like XXL sizes. So like mentally and like on paper, logically, you know that you aren't a big dude.
Right.
But when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's skewed a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's like, is that a
100%.
thing for you?
Definitely.
I think part of that is what keeps me going back to the gym too, is like, it's maybe not healthy, but it is like a fear of never wanting to go back.
Same here. I mean, lately I've been a bit more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
When you're going to the gym and you're trying to put on mass.
Right. Well, yeah, you're a muscly dude. I'm not such a muscly
By that
guy.
account, like you're going to put on weight. And if you're only looking at the scale, if I see that I'm like 250 in December, mentally that harms me a little bit. But I know like I'm pretty good at manipulating my body weight now that when it comes back to like, when it comes down to June, I'll be able to go back down to 200 and I'll be fine.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely have some mental things to iron out there.
Yeah, no, me too, man. It's weird. I get really annoyed. I don't know if you ever get this, but there's been a few times where, I don't know, I'm at a restaurant eating with people and we get dessert or something and someone will look over and be like, oh, well, you could just eat that all day and not gain weight.
I'm like,
Makes me so mad.
I could not eat that all day and not gain weight.
Like eating it right now is stressing me out.
That's one of the sweets are my issue. Is if
mine too.
Once I have the bite, it's over. I'm gonna order like 6 of them.
Dude,
I just have to avoid having the bite.
Because it's a literal addiction, right?
Yeah.
That's the closest I've ever come to understanding what some people struggle with like more serious addictions.
Yeah.
Because that first bite and it's all
game over.
Yeah, man. And then that can send me off on a like
binge.
A binge for like weeks, you know? Yeah.
It's a never ending cycle.
So weird how that happens.
And it sucks though, because I know like a good portion of being healthy is to be like mentally healthy and comfortable with who you are. And like I think the way that our minds work, we kind of have to work at that aspect of it too, and not just try to eat right or go to the gym all the time. Yeah,
I mean, definitely for me, I've become a lot more comfortable as I've gotten older of just accepting that it's going to happen, and that it also feels great in the moment. So I'm better at sort of allowing myself to have those little indulgences
I
here
feel
and
like
there.
Psychologically you need to have them.
Absolutely. And because
or else your cortisol levels are just going to go way through the roof and you're not going to be any better off.
There you go, man. And I think for both of us too, like you've just been talking about this strict routine. You go to the gym all the time. You've
not so much on tour.
I don't know, man. I saw your video. You were there today, weren't you?
As far as like regimented and like routines go, this tour has been, I think, the best tour we've had so far.
Really?
Yeah. Christian, I, and Adam, Willy. We get up as early as we can, as feasible, without like, without
hating your life.
Exactly. And I think the first thing we do is we go to the gym and we intermittent fast, so we don't really eat before like 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that really helps us.
How long have you been doing that?
The IF? Since as long as I can remember.
Really? What does that do for you? Like, talk to me about that, because I don't know many people who do that.
Okay, so I guess the bridge version is I wake up, I have an eating window for 8 hours. And within those 8 hours, I got to hit all my macronutrients, so like my proteins, my carbs, my fats. And then the other 16 hours, I'm fasting, or I'm just drinking water or coffee or tea or whatever. And it doesn't really matter the meal sizing or the meal timing in those 8 hours, as long as you hit like let's say like 2,300 calories that I need.
Yeah.
I feel like that it really helps me not overeat.
Because you just know you have that cutoff time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've been doing that for years? Long time?
So like let's say I was doing it for the past 6 years, 80% of the past 6 years.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
The only other person I've talked to on this show who's done something similar was What's So Not.
Okay.
And I think he was going even a little crazier, where he would just eat one time a day.
The warrior window, yeah.
Is that what that's called? Yeah.
More or less. I mean, it might be a bit different, but the one meal, yeah.
Yeah.
I did that for a little bit. I'm kind of doing that on tour now with the whole Fogo thing.
And does it work for it? Because for him, the way he described it made it sound terrible, but he was like really stoked and happy about it. Like, I don't, he said like he felt like his endorphins were all firing and.
Well, everything gets kind of better because your body goes in this weird, it's not necessarily bad, but you go in this weird like survival mode. So like everything's firing at 100% most of the time when you're not eating. You're kind of like psychologically always looking for food. So you're mentally alert all the time.
That's really interesting,
Yeah, so-
man. Do you think, other than the health benefits, do you think there's some mental benefits to that too? Like,
Your body's not always, without going into like specific scientific details, your body's not always digesting or concentrating on digesting the food.
Right. Because, I mean, we just talked about the itis, but like when that hits, you're not thinking about
You're not
much.
thinking about anything. And that goes hand in hand with us, Christian and I. I think we stopped drinking and partying altogether maybe about 4 years ago. We just started again maybe about a month or two ago.
Yeah.
But with that, you get like the mental clarity and you have way more energy. You start going to the gym and like or prioritizing your lives in different aspects.
What brought you back to booze, if you don't mind my asking? Because I've gone through those same periods.
Yeah.
Like I've been off it, I've been on it, and I know a bunch of people in our world who have done the same thing.
Well, originally it was just to kind of get back to homeostasis, like get my mental state, my physical state back in order. So I was going to do it for maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And then after 6 months of not boozing, you realize I don't really need this. I don't need it to perform. I don't really need it to like be social, interact. Like I'm going to live my life on my own terms.
Yep.
So the 6 months turned into close to 4.
That's amazing.
And then the same, like the pendulum swings back and the same kind of thinking comes. You don't want to define your life. You don't have like your terms defined, but like I'm completely sober.
Right.
So like I'll have a drink or two if I'm with friends or like somebody brings like a really good bottle of wine over.
Yeah, absolutely. And you
know?
strike me as the kind of person, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't seem like you ever had like a serious issue with it, you know?
No, not a serious issue, but like there was in our industry, there's an abundance at a shop.
Absolutely.
So it's not an issue. It's like, it's a supply.
The stakes are different for
Exactly.
what we do. Yeah.
Exactly. And for us, it gets normalized. Like drinking a bottle or two 5 times a week is normal.
Right.
Just going out on a Friday to Saturday is normal.
No, of course, man.
You know?
And it's always around. It's always free. Everybody wants to drink with you. That's the part.
Our reference point is different. That's another one. Everyone wants to drink with you. You make so many cool, interesting people in different cities that every time you hit that city, you don't want to let them down. You want to go see them. You want to talk to them.
Yep.
And like obviously drinking's a big part of that.
Yeah, exactly, man. For so long, or I should say, it took me so long to realize that was why I was drinking so much for so long, was just that I would feel awkward not doing it, you know?
So you see Johnny from like Chicago, you're like, dude, I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah.
Let's have a couple shots.
Absolutely.
And like before you know, once you've done the tour circuit like 5 or 6 times, there's like 6 Johnnies in every city that you have to like, you don't have to, but like you feel like you want to go hang out with them.
Yeah, man. Well, I feel like you guys put yourself in the danger zone by bringing John on tour with you.
No, John's in our boat now.
Really?
John is fantastic.
Oh, he cleaned up a little?
He's a health nut.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. We love John.
Oh, I love John so much, man. It is really funny. Like just sitting here, I'm thinking about when I saw you here last, which must have been.
It was either the Safe and Sound tour, like one of the first ones.
All I know is it was at least 6 years ago, because that's how long it's been since I was living here last.
So maybe it was the tour, our Superheroes Anonymous tour we did with Dubs and Dallas K. Hunter
It could have
Siegel.
been that, yeah. But it's just wild, man. I don't know. It's so funny, and I hope I'm not projecting this, but like, we never see each other that much. Like, it's pretty rare that I get to see you, but I always feel this connection.
Strong connection. Definitely strong connection. The first time we ever met.
Yeah, 100%,
sure.
man. And it's funny. It's funny you say that, because the first time you ever met was important to me for a couple of reasons. I mean, it was just cool to meet up, and I think we had a good time. It was in Minneapolis at a Life in Color
I remember
party.
that one.
Yeah. And why it was cool for me was the guy who booked me to play that would end up becoming my manager in several years later. And that was kind of our first big, business together. And we built that connection. So I have all these great memories from that night.
That was a great show. It wasn't Skyway, it was the other
Myth.
Myth.
Yeah, that's the one, the big one. I remember that was crazy because I was still DJing with a laptop.
Yep.
And dude, I mostly still am too.
Okay.
Shout out to Serato. But it's funny, man. Like, I got up there and I think I was playing right before their big paint blast that they do. And
those paint blasts.
And nobody told me anything, because I don't know. I didn't have a manager. I didn't have anyone. I just showed up. I was like, hey guys. And I put my computer up there. I was ready to go. And then all of a sudden, one of the people who worked for the tour was like, "What are you doing? You have to," try to like pull me down. He's like, "We're about to do the paint. You have to get off stage." And I was like,
they do the whole like cinematics,
oh,
the
yeah.
illustrations.
The whole something crazy. But then I kept being like, "Was my laptop, like, is it going to get paid?" And he was like, "Get off stage." He wouldn't tell me. I was like, and I finally just ran back up there and grabbed it, and they were super mad.
Did you ever used to like spray the cannons or go crowd surfing?
I did it. I sprayed the cannons once.
Okay.
I didn't actually like go crazy enough to get the paint on me.
Okay, yeah, I did some of the crowd surfing.
Yeah.
It's super dangerous because even they put the tarp from like the end of the stage to like the ground. And I think one time it was definitely me who it was a misstep right before I jumped in the crowd, and the tarp took me out and I landed right on my back in between the booth and the guardrail.
Oh, dude,
it's awful.
Oh man.
But again, this was in my heydays of partying, so I didn't feel a thing. Got
that's
up,
the thing. Yeah.
Crowd surfed, woke up, broken ankle, no problem though.
Fuck, dude. I remember once when I was in high school, I went to see Korn.
Dude.
This was like late 90s.
Korn.
And I love
Korn.
Oh my God.
I still love Korn.
I still love Korn, of course. And this is like, I was 15, 16. Like I was a kid.
Yeah.
And earlier that day, I had done something, I think it was something stupid, like I just tripped or something. And
Okay.
I was like, my foot kind of hurts. And I went to Korn, crazy show, like mosh pit after mosh pit. This is touring for the first album, like their first album tour.
Self-titled.
Yeah, self-titled.
I've started playing guitar.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about it.
I'll bring it back. I started playing guitar. I took it up to learn this. What was that song by Everclear?
Oh,
Santa Monica.
Santa Monica.
And then my taste got heavy pretty quick. And then Blind by Korn was like the next song I wanted to learn. You listen to the riff. You're like, fuck, that's heavy. You're trying to like figure it out. You're trying to tab it out. And then one day you realize you're like, fuck, I got to buy a 7-string guitar now.
Exactly. They changed the game with that, man. The sound they could get out of that. And it took me so long. They're the ones that introduced me to like drop D tuning on a guitar too. Fuck, man.
Once you go D, you never go back, man.
Well, yeah, especially for me who didn't know anything about playing the guitar. I was like, oh, this sounds great and it's easy. I was all in.
Drop D, drop C, drop B. And some of these bands go lower now.
I feel like you know more about the current scene than I do. Like I still love metal, but I mostly listen to like the shit I came up on.
Me too, for the most part. Like every now and then I'll get introduced to a new band that's super dope.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's hard, man. I mean, in what we do too, it's like I'm so tuned out.
It's already so hard to keep my ear to the ground in like the electronic.
Yeah, just like
music.
for what we do for work.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, it's
that
crazy.
like unless someone like tells me a band I listen to at the gym or something like that, I don't really go out of my way looking for it. What's nice is Spotify curates those playlists for you too.
Yeah, and those are great.
So you were at your first Korn concert?
Yeah, I was, and all I was going to say is, so like I did something to my foot earlier and I was just like, foot kind of hurts, whatever. Went to the Korn concert, crazy mosh pits, people stamping on my feet, all that kind of stuff. And I woke up the next day, like huge broken toe, black and blue.
It's crazy what we do at those concerts.
Yeah,
like
man.
moshing was fun. Two-stepping was fun. Just just kicking people in the face was fun. People enjoyed it.
Right. Well, because there was that spirit of we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Like even the guy who got kicked in the face,
he was pumped about it.
Yeah, he wasn't mad.
No.
Because you knew if you ever fell, someone would help you up, that kind of thing. So I feel conflicted about the current trend of like moshing at dubstep shows and headbanging
a lot of
at
people
dubstep.
are.
Yeah, man. And it's not necessarily my place to speak on it because I'm not like purely a dubstep DJ. But I mean, you guys have been like, I feel like one of the torchbearers for a certain strain of dubstep for a long time. Have you, I mean, talk about seeing that change, because I don't think it was like that when you started.
Not so much. We definitely started, we tried to instigate those things at our shows, because like...
Well, you have a band background.
We have a band background, so like, if we're speaking candidly, we vicariously do some of that through Adventure Club. Like sometimes we pretend we're like at a hardcore show. So like back when we were first touring, we dropped like Bring Me the Horizon songs, or like A Day to Remember songs, or like Veil of Maya songs. The kids back then had no idea what was going on, what were going on, but a lot of those songs now are nostalgic, and we still drop them. And we love seeing mosh pits at shows. And the kids, there's still that plur mentality. They pick each other up. So I think it's just like a transference of the mosh pits from back when we were in the band scenes.
And 100%. EDM became what Korn was for me at that age, you know?
Exactly.
And that's I'm not hating on at all, because I think that's just energy. And in my brain, like I think we have DJ brains, right? So to me, like all that music is connected.
Yeah.
The same feeling I got from Korn, I can get from a dubstep song,
Same.
I can get from a house song. It's less about what it actually sounds like to me.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear you talk about, you know, playing the band songs before that was kind of a thing to do, because now I feel like kind of everyone who plays a rock song or a metal song, it's all for nostalgia at the shows.
And
like,
I still love doing it. Like,
I still love doing it too. But I mean, when you started doing it, that must have been kind of weird to have people not know it, right?
So yeah, not really respond to. But what was worth it is like we got to play it and we got to mash it up with some electronic songs, and that you probably would have never heard that mashup happen maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And like there was always like the 1 or 2 kids in the crowd who knew exactly what that song was, and then you get that tweet after, and they're like, "This changed my life." Like that show was special to me because I love Under Oath or I love XYZ band.
Right.
And so they made that like fond connection between like the bands they love in high school and like their new like journey on into the EDM scene.
That's so cool, man. I love it because it just makes me think about, you know, the people I really loved, like early Diplo and Hollertronics and all that. It was exactly the same kind of mentality, you know? And like the feeling it would give me to hear a guy like Diplo play The Clash into Missy Elliott, you know, anything like that. I think that's maybe not to get like on our high horses about it, but I think that's a service we can provide as DJs who have been around for a while, is to be like, you're not the only person who thinks this way.
Exactly.
You know, the weird connections your brain makes
The
are actually
first time
normal.
I ever saw someone play a non-EDM song, I think was 8 years ago at the SAT in Montreal. It was a Felix Cartel show.
Oh yeah.
And he was playing electro the whole night, and then at the end of the set he played Your Woman by White Town.
Oh, by White Town.
Yeah. The intro of that song gets me every single time. I still got goosebumps from that. And that's when I realized like you could kind of play whatever you wanted.
Right.
As long as sonically it worked.
That's got some balls, man. That's like now that's what I call music hit.
Like 98.
Yeah, man, that's like a 90s night staple.
Thinking about resampling that song.
You should.
Great intro.
But no, I mean, let's talk about those band days, man, because you and Christian met in high school, is that right? Even earlier?
You know, high school was so I wanted to start a band, and I had
this is in Montreal.
This is in Montreal, and we were growing up. I was growing up in Pierrefonds. Christian was growing up in this city called Beaconsfield, and I had a friend who was like my quasi manager at the time, and I got her to put up band postings like members wanted at all the high schools, and Christian was the only guy who took a little ticket. He called me up. He's like, "Hey, man, I play guitar. Could I come over and audition?" And I was pretty desperate at that point. And so this guy shows up, and Christian, for lack of a better word, was terrifying back then. He was definitely into the gym big time.
Okay.
He was only into uppers at the time. He had tons of piercings, like ear piercings, nose piercings, 2 lip piercings.
Oh, wow.
And he would never go anywhere unless he had his meals with him. So he showed up with like his Stratocaster, his Marshall amp, and then pretty much, I don't know where he put the casseroles, but he had like 2 casseroles. One was like a steak casserole and one was like a potato casserole, and they were kind of just balancing on him.
That's just for one audition. I love
just for
that.
one audition. And it turns out it was the only audition we needed for our friendship. But oddly enough, we didn't speak once at that audition. We just kind of sat there in my basement and just riffed out. Made our first song. I think we barely spoke 5 words to each other.
Wow.
And that bond has grown stronger every single day ever since.
And did you guys go to school together as well?
Nope.
Okay.
No. We went to different high schools. We went to different universities.
Were you doing musical projects all the way through, like from that first band? Is that how you stayed in contact?
So Christian and I, we've been through maybe 6 different musical projects since the inception of our first, I want to call it like metalcore band.
Yeah.
The members have always changed. The type of music has always changed, but Christian and I have always been members of whatever group that has been. So like we started with a metalcore band, then I think we did like a hardcore band, pop punk, and then we started doing weird, it wasn't EDM, but it was very like electronic influenced pop music.
Yeah. Electro pop.
Yeah, we're like thinking about reimagining those songs into country songs.
Oh shit, okay.
Or like re-putting them out there as pop songs, but that's yet to be seen.
It's not a bad time to put out some electronic pop songs, man. Would you do it under Adventure Club?
We do it under a different name.
Okay.
And then I think one day, so I started, so we'll go back a bit. And I started working at Tiga's record label called Turbo Records.
Oh shit, I didn't know you worked
with Thomas
for
and
Turbo.
Oliver. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what introduced me to the guys like Proxy, Boys Noise, Tiga, Chromeo, Pop Off, Proxy, so good.
Oh man,
That Tune the
Proxy's so
Raven.
fucking good, man. That's such an anthem. Still to this day.
I know.
Such an anthem.
And that's what got me into, is you saw those guys, Steve Aoki, Bloody Beetroots.
It's
Anyways.
crazy to hear so many people, especially Canadians, obviously, like Tiga in some way affected their
Tiga was
career.
a guy, man. Like Tiga, Mastercraft. So I got into that kind of side of EDM, and then Christian had just listened to Tech One's remix of Bring Me the Horizon song.
Okay.
And that was kind of like, although it was early, that was like the first marriage of like the two genres that we had loved, and we couldn't find anything similar to that.
Yeah.
And that's when we decided that we wanted to like take music that we listened to from the band scene and do our best to make it electronic. And we did Thrice. We did a Thrice remix, a brand new remix. The brand new remix was very, very well received. And once that came out on Hype M and a bunch of blogs picked it up, I think that's when we realized that we wanted to maybe start focusing more on Adventure Club than like taking and unpacking drums every like
Had
every
any
day
of
in
your
different
other
cities in
projects
Canada.
seen any success?
We in Canada we opened for like Cancer Bats once.
Okay. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, they were a big deal back then.
I mean, Cancer Bats
the
are
La
sick,
Dispute,
yeah.
the Gorgeous, like bands that we Drop Dead Gorgeous, bands that we idolized back then.
Right.
But no, not too much. No radio success. No success by any means.
And were you guys, before the Adventure Club and those first Hype M, successes, how seriously were you taking music? Was this a career in your minds? Was it like the dream that you were going to make work? Or was it, something you were kind of just doing for fun while you were doing a different career?
That went in waves for us. So when we first started the band, like we were gonna like record our first demo. Like Sumerian was gonna sign it. We'd hit Warped Tour, and then like we'd make it big. Like, that was a dream.
Out.
Like we were all gonna quit school. I was like a semi-pro soccer player.
Really?
Turned that down so we could go on tour.
Damn.
And it didn't pan out. And then music, it never took like a backseat, but it definitely like we had to like split our time between school. I went to McGill for finance and accounting. I did my whole university career while like still kind of, we'd work on music maybe like 4 hours a week.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was in the summer right before I graduated, that we started putting out these remixes.
And you guys were at the beginning there. I remember there were a lot of those remixes.
Yeah,
it seemed like you were just banging them out.
There was no red tape. We had no label.
Yeah.
It was super easy to hit up. It wasn't super easy, but we hit up every single blog that we could think of.
Well, yeah, and this
super
was
guerrilla style.
Well, of course, and I mean the blog era. That was when you could just
Yo,
sample anything you want, send it to whoever you want.
And YouTube channel started uploading it. Blogs started uploading all our songs. And we got, I think there was like a niche or like a want in the market for that type of sound, and it was just the right time when the electronic or like the EDM scene was rising.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what you were talking about earlier, that sort of, for lack of a better word, like the blog house scene was half bands and half DJs, right? Yeah. We talk about people like Chromeo, we talk about people like Mastercraft, who went on to be Death from Above, all that kind of stuff.
Well, Death from Above, then Mastercraft, then back, yeah.
Exactly. And all those bands were, half of them were live bands, the presets, all those kind of...
I love the presets, Cut Copy.
Dude.
That was one of my favorite concerts, Cut Copy and the presets.
I wish I could have seen that, Bill. I saw the presets once, they fucking slayed it, but... fuck, man. But that energy to me was so vital. And I think you guys were sort of the next evolution of that, where the balance started to shift more towards the electronic side, right? And did you feel like you had any contemporaries in those early years? Was anyone kind of doing a similar thing?
There were. There still are. Like we pretty much... There were a lot of contemporaries, and I think the ones that are still like one of the only one I can really think of right now that started around the same time that we started is Seven Lions.
Sure.
as far as like sonically
I was
goes,
actually
and, like,
just thinking about him earlier in conjunction with you guys, because I feel like I feel like he kind of is in his own world the same way you guys are in your own world, even to this day, you know?
I feel like we're two separate lanes on the same road.
Yeah, that's
And
a good
then
way to put it.
I think a couple other people who like kind of took the torch are like Elenium set the sky.
Yeah.
Anyways, anyone who kills it in the melodic genre right now.
I mean, I wouldn't even really know how to categorize what you guys do. Do you know how? Do you try? Do you care?
We just call it like a bunch of keywords like vocal, female, vocal, melodic, bass, music.
All the hashtags
Just
to show up in the
everything,
right playlist. Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, thinking about that kind of stuff is sort of pointless, I think. 'Cause the more we try to define ourselves, the more I think, at least for me, the more I just get in my own head about it. Do you ever feel like, I mean, if we think about the start of Adventure Club up till now, obviously there's been a big evolution in the sound in terms of, you know, both technical, like, skill and mastering and all that, you know, sonic quality,
gotten better,
of course, but then also songwriting and structure and style. You know, was there ever a time when you felt, when it was conscious, where you were like, okay, let's make something new, let's change up what you're doing? Or has it been sort of more just an organic kind of, this is what we feel at the time, so this is what we make?
There was a marked, like, conscious decision to change our sound to maybe try to cross over when we wrote our album Red Blue.
Right.
That was I could tell you, you know,
more
honestly,
collaboration,
more collaboration,
vocals.
more top lines that were poppy. But anything before that was anything we wanted to do.
Right.
If we wanted to write like a 128 song for fun, or like a 110 song for fun, or like, you know, bring in like a screamo vocal for something, we would do that.
Yeah.
Just that one album, that was something where we might have, like, I don't want to say we lost perspective, or like kind of like had an identity. We might have had like a bit of an identity crisis, and like that was the period where that would have taken place.
Yeah, and I could imagine that's pretty tough, man, because albums to me are commitments, right? I mean,
we're so slow.
Well, right, me too, man. I feel
like
you
it
on
takes
that.
forever. So by the time like we write like song number 1, whatever like trend that song might have been in is like, it's dead, it's gone. By the time that album gets released, like it's so like 3 years ago.
Right.
So I think that's what happened to us. And now, like, anytime we put out a song, we're with Ultra Records now. We finish a song, it's a single, it comes out like in a month or two, which is fantastic. It's kind of like how we used to operate. We'd finish a song at like 3 a.m. We just put up on SoundCloud.
Oh, 100%, you know? Man. Yeah, I kind of miss those days.
I miss those days so much.
Yeah, I remember like I was doing this thing, God, this was probably like 8 or 9 or 10 years ago, where I was just putting out a song every week on a Wednesday, and I did it for like 6 months or something crazy. And, you know, the quality varied because I literally was doing it every single week. And there were some of those weeks where it would be like, you know, 11:52 on Tuesday night, and I just be like, I gotta, you know, the master's not gonna get any better. Got to send it out.
Got to put it out there.
Yeah, man.
And like it would get picked up. Like there was no Instagram. Like the Twitter scene wasn't really there. And like everyone was just on SoundCloud. They saw like a new SoundCloud upload, it would explode, and then that was it. We posted it once on Facebook, and everyone was happy.
Dude, yeah, I miss those days, man.
Everyone saw all the posts. There was no like algorithms. It just hit your timeline. You liked it, you listened to it, you shared it, you didn't. It didn't really matter.
It's such a meta game now with social media to even get people to see what you're doing.
It's like pay to play now.
It's pay to play, or you have to really surf the algorithm, and you know.
But I'm not about like finding the newest meme just to get some traction. Because even then, like you find the newest meme, you get a bunch of likes and shares, and then once you finally do post something that's close to like your art, it won't get any traction either way.
No one cares. The only time the meme shit works is if you're the meme guy.
Yeah,
and I'm not the meme guy.
I don't want to be the meme guy.
Yeah, exactly.
We like Christian and I were pretty reserved like personalities. We don't want to force like some like weird like charismatic persona. Like
it's so awkward, man.
You know.
I mean, how do you engage with social media are you able to sort of find a healthy medium? Because we have to a certain extent.
You have to, and like I understand that now, but like if it were up to both of us, if we weren't in this position and like our management and like our PR team wasn't like, yo, you gotta like put some stuff out on social media, we'd be off the grid.
Oh, bro, 100%.
Whatever you see on our personal, like most of the time what you see on our socials isn't like, it's like it's like the tip of the iceberg of how we live our personal lives.
Of course, man.
You know?
Which I'm very much the same way. Like, I don't like putting stuff out there.
I truly believe that like your most intimate, sincere moments should be shared with people that are close to you, like your family, and your phone shouldn't be out taking like those snaps.
Sure.
You know?
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that.
I'm not about like Snapchatting or Insta storing my niece's first steps.
No, 100%. And I'm not either. And to be fair, I'm not judging anyone who does live that way, because it's just, that's not how my life works. But for me, it's more that I almost admire people who are like, oh no, the world should see this. Because for me, I never feel like, oh, everyone should look at what I'm doing right now.
I don't know. Like a lot of the times I just do like anything, like any accomplishments or like accolades, or like I do that for me. I don't really do it to boast about it. If I like want to learn how to like fly, that's for me. Unless it's specific to Adventure Club. Like we got nominated for a Grammy, it'd be kind of weird to not be like, yo, what's up? We got nominated for a Grammy.
No,
that
you
kind
should
of
talk
stuff.
about
like
that.
anything music related for sure.
So let's take it back to, you were talking about the album and the songs you were dropping leading up to that. And I felt like pretty quickly when you guys came out, because you were with a major for that album, right?
Sony, BMG.
Yeah. So that was an interesting move to me, because that felt more like a band move. To just like have a couple hit songs, then all of a sudden, boom, you're with the major, you do the album. That to me felt more like a band. And was that a conscious thing for you guys? Like, I'm curious how you ended up on that route when so many others kind of went the other way.
I think it's subconscious, because we grew up with that cycle. You start your band, you put out your EP, a major picks you up, you make that album, you tour that album. It's just, I think it was subconsciously, it made sense to us.
Did you like the major label experience overall? I mean, obviously there's pluses and minuses
all in
to
all,
any direction.
All in all, yes. Yeah. It was nice having that support system, and I think BMG was really great with that. I know there's other artists or other people who maybe think like it's stifling to have that, or like if there's creative differences and clashes, that's when like the artists really don't see the benefit. The artist wants to put out Project A, and like the label has the vision of Project B for them.
Right. And the fear is that if you go with Project A, then they won't support you.
Exactly.
Because it's
but then if you go with Project B, your soul is no longer intact.
Right. But that's good. So they kind of let you guys do what you want, more or less.
Yeah.
And how did you find that album experience when you were making it, in terms of all of a sudden, you mentioned you're writing with top liners, you're collaborating probably more than you had in the past. Was that sort of an awkward, like coming out of your shell thing? Did it end up being beneficial?
We've always really worked with top liners in the past. Like usually we'd make an instrumental and a top liner would hop on, or like a top liner would send us an instrumental. And there are occasions where we all sit down in a room together. I'll hop on like piano or guitar. Christian will hop on either piano or guitar too, and we'll all sit together, make down melodies, to make the chords first. We tend to write this song with instruments before we even go into the box. Right.
Because Christian plays instruments too.
Christian's an amazing guitar player. I studied piano for like the first 15 years of my life.
Oh wow.
But yeah, so the experience it wasn't awkward, but sometimes there was definitely days where it felt like creativity was being forced. And that's tough for us.
Well, especially if you were in, a nice studio and you're aware of money being spent or time passing.
It was the time passing that was really getting to us, because it'll take us like a month to make one song.
Yeah, dude. I'm asking this only for personal reasons, but how do you deal with that now? Because I still have trouble sometimes. Like I've never been the fastest songwriter. I've gotten better, and I've gotten better in terms of just knowing what I want, but still I'm not as fast as, some 16-year-old in his bedroom.
Some of these guys are so fast.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Blows my mind.
Crazy.
I remember we were doing a collab with Dion Timmer, and
he's nuts.
It's crazy. Like I sent him the stems. He's like, all right, bro. An hour later, here's the first drop. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I thought I had at least a couple weeks here.
Dude, I knew I was in trouble back in the day. I put out a song, this was a long time ago, kind of in the Moombahton era when I was just starting. And the label was like, who do you want to get to a remix? And I was like, oh, there's this new kid named Dylan Francis. I really like what he's doing. Let's reach out to him. And he said yes, and I was super stoked. And this was like before he had really done almost anything. And I sent him the stems, and he sent the finished remix back to me 4 hours later.
Wow.
And I was like, God damn it. It made me so mad because it was so good. And it's still so good.
That's the thing. It's fast, but it's also fucking amazing. These kids are fucking incredible.
Oh, it's inspirational. Absolutely. It makes me want to be better.
For sure. I have no, I might, there's a part of me that could be spiteful, but I'm not, because when we were coming up, the tutorials that we had and the learning materials that we had are vastly different than the ones that these kids have. And I'm so happy that they have all that to shape the EDM scene to come.
Oh yeah, and
it's all about evolution, and I'm incredibly happy they're the ones doing it.
Absolutely, and you're still here. I mean, all those tools are helping you too,
for sure.
And you have the strength of the experiences that came before that. I think for the old men like us in the game, that's like the one edge we really have, right? Is like we know where this shit came from, and so I think we can kind of, rather than get caught up in what's going on right now, take the longer view of it. Does that make sense? I mean, do you think about that in terms of, where you want the project to go, like long ways down the line?
I think Adventure Club will always be we always coin it classic Adventure Club, but it's just female melodic bass music.
Yeah, you guys have such a strong vibe. I feel like the people who follow what you do too, there's a really strong connection with the material.
I mean, they let us experiment, and they let us put out songs that aren't, Adventure Club, or songs that aren't just objectively not as good as some of the stuff we've put out.
Yeah.
But either way, they've always had our back. Like Point in Case is this tour. It's been maybe a year and a half, 2 years since we've put out an actual release since Red Blue Need Your Heart 2.0 with Dion Timmer came out. I think that was our last release, and then we've put some edits and some VIPs up on SoundCloud, but nothing really official.
Yeah.
And we announced this tour, and this tour is doing incredible. We have so many diehards coming out. Most of these shows are selling out, and it's inspiring to see that it's actually more than inspiring. It's just such an honor to see we have all these diehards that are still coming out.
Yeah,
still and such a strong connection to our fan base.
I mean, these are big venues.
No downsizing, and it's awesome. We really thankful for that. Super grateful. And with that being said, we just did release an official track with Ultra with Crankdat and Krewella called Next Life. Yeah,
I like that
was
song
kind of
a
full
lot.
circle. I think that's the most new and past and new we could have done. Because we love Crankdat. Super new, great producer.
He's amazing.
Always wanted to work with him since he came out on the scene. And then Krewella's obviously longtime friends of us. We did. I think we wrote one of our first songs together with them.
Right. I mean, I always associated you two together, you and Krewella, in my mind back in the day. I don't know if you remember, there's actually, I had them on the show a while back, and there's a picture that both them and me remember, and you're in it as well. It's all three of us, all very drunk, in a club in Chicago. I don't even think any of us were playing. I think we were all just hanging out.
Yeah.
And this was, probably 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And even the photo is blurry. It's just one of those.
Lots of good memories.
Yeah, man. How did you meet them originally?
Krewella?
Yeah.
SoundCloud Posse. Back then, it was so easy to find a song on SoundCloud. I think what they released. I can't remember the song they released, but I was
it was the Knife Party one. That was the first one I heard. I remember hearing that and being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you instantly knew. You heard that song, you're like, these guys will blow up.
Yep.
We hit them up on SoundCloud, flew over to Chicago. No, we played a show in Milwaukee, and then I guess logistically it made sense. We drove over to Chicago, spent the day in the studio with them, and wrote that song, Rise and Fall, back in the day.
And that ended up being a pretty big tune for both of you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I feel like that was an anthem for a while.
That's what's nice is we'll play a song like that was released 2013, 2012, and 80% of the crowds on this tour will still sing it. As if it's the first time they've ever heard, not the first time they've ever heard it, but the first time they've ever heard it live,
right?
Which is nice.
Well, and that's something we forget too. You guys especially, you do so much touring. I feel like you're always on the road, and all the shows start to blur together a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really easy, maybe not to get jaded, but at least to just sort of just ride the wave and not really think about the day-to-day, who you're in front of, you know?
Yeah.
But if I think about me going to shows as a kid, that's exactly how I felt. What you just said, you know, I mean, they would play the one song you were waiting to hear.
Yeah.
That was everything.
Everything.
And I try to think about that when I do shows, man. It's sometimes more successfully than others, but to be like, yes, a lot of these people are seeing me for the first time, even though I've played thousands of these.
That's it. That's something that we've become more conscious of, is that when a lot of these songs came out for us, the people that were listening to us, our demographic, they were still in high school. They might have been like anywhere between 10 and 15.
Yeah.
And like a lot of those times, those kids can't come see shows back when we were touring. So now that they can come see us, they're of age to come see us, it would be like a disservice to us and to them to not play those songs that they grew up on.
Right.
And that's what I think we're doing a lot on this tour.
Did you ever get sick of certain songs or be like, you know, we're done with that, we're moving on from this sound?
No, never. The only thing that we kind of stray away from are the songs that we produced that just aren't produced properly at all.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how much we want to play them, like I'd rather not blow the club sound system
Right,
up.
exactly. I mean, I've talked about this on the show before, man. It's funny because we're in this like sonic arms race, right? There's, you know, weapons grade music being released right now, and songs, you know, classic songs from kind of when we were all coming up. They're still great songs in terms of writing, but then production-wise, they don't always age well, and you can't play them next to something that was made in 2019. Just sonically, it doesn't sound good on a big system. It's kind of sad.
We have one or two of those songs, and we just thought the music, and we're like, this is a classic. If you know it, we love you.
There you go. I was thinking, I mean, I wish certain DJs would remake their big tunes in just with modern techniques.
We would do that in a heartbeat, but that computer is long gone.
Yeah, you don't even have the files.
Yeah. And like, it's so hard to put yourself back in that creative state you were in like 4 years ago.
Well, of course.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd remake like a bunch of stuff.
Put out the greatest hits.
Yeah, definitely do that. I think the bus is about to get swarmed.
Oh boy.
By a bunch of full people.
What's up, guy? What's up, man?
What's up, man?
Hear how saucy your voice is.
It's a saucy voice.
You got yourself in there?
Are we back on? Okay. Well, lucky for everyone here and everyone listening out there, Christian has walked onto the bus. Christian is here after a delicious meal that one of us wasn't invited to.
I orchestrated a real big scheme.
It was a coup. Yeah, coup. It was a Kansas City.
There were so many red herrings. There was a Trojan horse in there. There's so many things happening.
I looked left, he went right.
Basically,
so better or worse than Fogo de Chao?
I mean, fuck, man, it's better, of course.
No.
There goes that Fogo
course,
sponsorship.
The first like 10 minutes of this talk was Picanha and Fogo de Chao.
I can eat picanha for days. That's
I remember those days well.
Umami duck for days.
But it's actually funny to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier. Is I was talking about one of the times I've seen Layton was in a tour bus in DC outside of this venue, maybe 6 years ago or more.
Okay. I think it was Superheroes Anonymous.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I have strong memories of that. And you were there too, but then there's been all these times when I've seen Layton and you haven't been there. Throughout the years, because Layton and I have known each other a long time.
That's not a rare experience.
Right.
I think typically that's kind of the experience you get with the Adventure Club package. Is Layton's the more social, outgoing guy, and I'm pretty introverted. You know, I have my moments, but I'm pretty introverted, and you know, I'll just duck out here and there.
Yeah.
Not,
which I feel.
I wouldn't say that's the case so much anymore at all.
Yeah, it takes work though. It was a lot of work, and Layton's a good, you know.
He's kind of
Layton's a great support system.
Too,
yeah, he is. But he's also a great support system just to like, you know, help you grow into like a good, you know, a better person, more outgoing person. He's definitely like the kind of person who's going to prop you up, and he's not really judgmental.
There's a little bit of that motivational coach in there.
He's more like lead by example. Like I've never heard Layton really say anything judgmental or bad about anyone in the 15 years I've known him. It's just not his MO. He cares for the people he cares about deeply, and he just props you up.
It's a good
So I should have missed
So I feel like my growth
Layton, do I need to edit out all the terrible things you said about it?
Fuck yeah.
I feel like a lot of my growth, like over the course of our career, into being more social and more easygoing and more accepting of other people is growth I've achieved through him.
And all the experiences we've had together.
Was that a problem at some point? Like when you started going out on the road a lot, having to be social for your job a lot?
It was
for me. Because I had bad experiences with that at the start.
I don't really talk about it, openly very much. I've always kind of toyed with the idea, but I struggle with a lot of mental health issues and anxieties and depressions and stuff. And
I've been talking to a lot of people about that lately, man.
And I think it's pretty common with the artistic, artistic mind, right? The creative artistic mind that's gonna, put you in the position to be a producer, DJ, all that stuff. It comes with its pluses and its minuses, and its minuses, unfortunately, is it's common in our industry to have people have the anxieties and the depressions.
Oh yeah,
and
it's common and it's not talked about, right? Because especially, you guys are on tour, right? And so maybe you'll see a peer of yours one night for a couple hours in one city, and in that interaction you go, "Hey, how are you?" The other person goes, "I'm great."
Fantastic,
and then that's it.
You're not going to go deep in that.
You don't dig deep. You have the superficial kind of.
As long as you're smiling, as long as there's a party going, as long as you're getting shots around, you're fine.
Yeah, and even for me, like if I'm the person who's not feeling great, I wouldn't say it because I don't want to bring the vibe down.
Exactly. That's always been my reasoning. Is if I can't contribute socially, I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I'm not going to be there and bring everyone down and be a negative because I don't. Obviously, that doesn't feel good for you, and it doesn't feel good for me, right?
Don't go for the sake of going out.
I've been toying with the idea of kind of being a little bit more open, and I feel like I do have a bit of a responsibility, being someone who's functional and who's figured out, how to function with these issues. Is to kind of lead the same way Layton would, by example, right?
And I feel like you pick the right times. Like when like the night's not your night to go out, and you know exactly when it is to go out. And like you're in a certain mood, and like you bring up the crew, like you bring up the fun factor and the outgoing factor by like 100, 110 when you do go out. And like if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Oh, there's something to be said for picking your spots, man. Yeah, absolutely.
But you also got to be a yes man sometimes too, right? Sometimes so a lot of these things are like just like this dinner tonight. I was just being, I was being a little bit of a shit. I was just like making issues where there shouldn't be issues. I was just. And I last minute I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go, and it had an amazing experience.
I had the responsibility to lead by example, and I didn't. I failed today.
There you go.
I failed. I failed Layton today. I think I did the exact opposite.
I feel like as long as both of you feel like you failed the other, then it's going to work out.
I brought Layton down. I brought him into the depths, into the darkness, and then I just left him there. I ran away. I did the exact opposite.
Well, I mean, it's great to see you guys together. And like, I like seeing when a duo or a group is genuine that way, because I think we know plenty of people who it's more of a business relationship, right? And I guess I'm curious, because there was a time for you guys when like you were off the road, right, Christian?
Yeah.
And I remember, because I saw Layton in those years too. Yeah. And talk about that as far as, how did that affect the relationship? It was like a medical thing, right?
Yeah, well, it was a medical thing. I definitely, we kind of blanketed over as back issues, which I did. I messed my back up. I herniated my discs, but it kind of crossed over into a depression thing that I just didn't want to talk about. So we kind of just kept delaying it. Christian's injured; he's not making it out, and I was actually just at home, just trying to get my head straight.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that Layton supported me for. That was a long time. He played a lot of shows alone without me, and he never said a word about it. He never, he just let me kind of heal and get into the place where I could continue.
But that's another good partnership, man. Like,
it's not only partner, like you're blood brothers at that point,
right?
Yeah, you're in the trenches. It's not, you fight through the good stuff and the bad stuff, and that's just the way it is. You fight through the hard stuff, not even bad stuff. Sometimes hard isn't bad, right? But you guys,
sometimes
that's the whole point.
What makes you better, right?
You got this partner, and you're doing everything good. Hard, easy, bad, everything. You're just doing it together, and that's part of that's like the best part of the experience. Is it's not one facet. It's not superficial. It's like that's the experience of life, and you're just doing it with someone else. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Sick fist bump for everyone listening at
Fist
home. So let's talk about what you're doing right now. You're out here, you're on tour. It sounds like the tour is going really well. Once you guys are off the road, what are you looking at? Because Layton had been mentioning you guys have been quiet on the releases for a while. Do you know kind of what the next 6 months, the next year looks like, what you want to get done, what people should be looking out for?
We have a backlog of releases that are finally going to see the day of life. Day of life.
Day of light.
Day of light.
You'll bring them back to life.
Day of life.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we mentioned, we just released Next Life with Crankdat and Krewella.
Yep.
And I think the next one will be super, super classic AC, very nostalgic for a lot of our listeners. We got back in the studio with Yuna, and we made sure to
love Yuna.
Yeah.
She's one of our absolute favorite artists to work with, vocalists to work with, writers to work with.
Soulful.
Yeah, she's got, we try to, there's a little bit of subtlety that we try to work with. I think EDM kind of loses that subtlety in some of its, departments.
That's something
I'm not trying to throw shade or anything.
No, you're absolutely right. I think anyone would agree to that who does what we do in 2019. And it's something I even wanted to ask you guys about because I feel like I was just talking to someone who's, I'm not going to name him, but he's a dubstep guy. He's in our world. And he was saying he's really frustrated because he feels like he just can't let up for a second in his sets, right? And he wants there to be more of a flow, more, quiet moments, loud moments, a plot arc, so to speak. And he just hasn't been able to find a way to do it because the crowds just won't work with him.
I think we had that dilemma for a little bit.
Yeah, but we went through the growing pains, but now we're in a great place where we can. And I think it's also, when you're watching a crowd and they're just going just absolutely crazy to like a banger, like a heavy track, like you're not going to get, even if they're having an insanely, deep, profound experience with when you start to bring in the more emotional, more
you won't
deep
see
music,
visually.
You don't get as many visual cues. So you don't get the feedback.
You
as
think everyone's
DJ.
just kind of standing there with their arms crossed, being like, why are they playing this slow shit?
Exactly.
But then you put yourself in the crowd and
Like
you're like, if I was listening to this song, how would I be feeling on the inside?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do with it.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's a more subtle music, so you got to watch out for more subtle cues, right?
Right.
And I think, we went through it a little bit, and then when you start playing shows and you play a song and you're like, wow, it kind of lulled during that song, but then you go back and on the internet, people are like, yo, I loved when you played that. Like I was crying during that part. Like, and everyone was talking about that one part.
To the crazier shit.
Exactly.
It's
It's a good ebb and flow.
Yeah.
It's a good, and I think that's something that, we've tailored well, or like kind of like fine-tuned well over the years, is that
roller
that nice
coaster
dichotomy,
emotions.
like the aggression and the heavy and that release, and then it's like you get that, you build that tension emotionally back up, and it's just like build up, release. And
you guys have always been good about, there's always been emotion, there's always been melody in your music since day one, I feel like. So maybe that's an easier transition. For me, what I told this friend I was talking to is like, I think you just have to embrace silence. Like there's so much power in silence and in awkward moments.
Even in the music itself,
right.
EDM is just volume wars, right? And it's just like you're getting hammered with sound, like, and then you go and you listen to like a classical composition and you see like the volume, that the dynamics are just so different.
And you think about, this may be a bit of a reach, but back in the day when classical composer would debut a new piece, sometimes there were riots, literal, people would tear up the theater. And like, I think about that and to what we do now, people are acting the same way. But
now we're just a little overstimulated.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we've got technology is allowing us to overclock our brains a little bit.
You hit yourself in the head with a hammer 10 times. You're not going to really you're not going to feel much if you start touching yourself nice and softly. You lose the little fine touch there.
Well, we should talk about the Grammy shit for a second, because we haven't even mentioned that.
Slowly, brushed over it.
Yeah.
But
I think we mentioned it happened, but you guys are Grammy-nominated artists for the rest of your life.
Can't take that
that
back.
is something we will post on social media all the time.
We didn't win the Grammy, but we still got the nom.
we got the nom.
That's something, and like.
But I
that's
mean, the
huge
thing
on its
is,
own.
like, you probably do because you didn't win, but like, I don't even know who won the Grammy, but I know that you were nominated, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel like the nomination is the big part.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree. I mean,
And
just
to get to that point, I mean, that must have been a surreal moment, especially coming from the scene you're in. Like, you know, you guys are considered a dubstep act.
Yeah.
And like dubstep and Grammys, I feel like do not go together
Yeah,
that much.
We had Sonny kind of bringing it to the forefront
Right.
a little bit a couple of years ago, but man, that was an experience. That was something different. And it was also just because I didn't even know we had anything submitted. You know,
Really?
Yeah,
We had no idea.
So when we touched down, I don't know if you guys spoke about this at all, but
No, not yet.
We were flying and taking a red eye, me and Layton,
Back
from
home.
one of our shows, and we landed in the morning that the announcements were made, and you know our phones were off. So when we turned our phones on, they just started blowing up at like 7, 8, 9, 10, something in there in the morning.
Yeah.
And Layton, you know, Layton's a little bit better with his phone, a little bit more responsive with his phone.
little bit.
Really?
A little bit. So
little.
I probably
man,
hadn't
you
even
must
turned
be
my phone.
really bad.
I probably hadn't even turned my phone on yet, and Layton's like, "Yo," it's like, I think like management / agency, I think they're fucking with us. He's
Playing a
like,
little
they're
prank.
trying to pull prank on us.
They
like,
have a
saying,
history of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which they do. They do. They they're little pranksters, but. He's saying, I think we got a Grammy nomination. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I laughed a little bit. I'm like, that's a little too far fetched to like try to fuck with us. A little
Right,
bit. You know, like, hey, if you're gonna try to play with us, like, you know,
make it believable.
Make it believable.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then Layton starts getting, you know, messages from his friends and everything's coming in, you know, social media, this and that. And then he's like, yo, I think this is legit. And he goes on the website and looks and sees our name there. And he's like, yo, man, we're fucking Grammy nominated. And this was like right after we touched down, right?
Yeah.
I think Layton might have pulled a little stunt, turned his phone on a little early. You know how that goes.
As soon as the wheels hit,
Yeah,
the
sure.
phone's allowed to be on.
But
Seatbelt sign was still on, however.
seatbelt sign was on when we found this out, and he was sitting one row ahead of me, and you know we just popped those seatbelts off. We didn't care. We just hugged.
Yeah.
Flight attendants yelling at us,
Of course.
but they never yell at you directly. They go
They
on
get on the PA.
the PA, and they just make general announcements
To shame you.
looking at you.
Right.
They'll look at you and they'll even point at you, but they won't address you. They'll just say, you know, everyone, just so you know, the seatbelt sign's on. Please remain
Well,
in
it's
your
a
seat.
smart tactic
Yeah.
because then everyone else looks at you.
Yeah,
and
everyone
there's
else looks at
group
Yeah,
It's a
so
shame.
we
It's a group
didn't
shame.
care. We were just looking at each other.
Yeah,
Right.
Just deep into each other's eyes.
teary-eyed.
We don't tear up too often, but
I don't even know where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a surreal, and then the actual experience itself of going to New York.
Of course.
it was the first year they did it, I think, in New York,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, going to New York for the Grammys, man.
Well, I mean, that's just a beautiful story. Like, it's a funny story that they were yelling at you and all that, but I'm glad, it makes me happy to hear a story like that where it sounds like for a second you could actually
You
take it
escaped.
in
Yeah.
and be in that moment. Because I think for what we do, everything moves so fast. You're touring, you're flight to flight to flight. It's hard to sort of appreciate any of it. Even like playing a show,
Yeah.
there's maybe a couple, if it's a really good show for me, there's maybe 1 or 2 moments where I'm like, I'm here in this room with all of you people. Like, that's like the best show.
I think since we stopped drinking heavily
Yeah.
for our shows,
We get those
we
moments
went
more and more.
from just like kind of like blurry shows, and we cut out all the alcohol, the partying, and we had like a month or 2 of just, it was a little difficult to build up the energy and get there.
Yeah.
And I think now that we went kind of through that struggle, like now is when I actually feel way more during sets than I used to. Like I'll actually probably like once or twice a show I'll get a little teary-eyed.
You'll
That's
see
the
that.
best.
You'll see a couple
Yeah,
people in the
every
crowd
show.
who are like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
emotionally invested. Like they're tearing
actually-
up to
yeah.
your music, and like you have the only response that you can possibly do is just to tear up with them.
Yeah, and people think
Yeah.
I'm tough. Like they see like my beard and my tattoos, and I don't not go to the gym.
That's the most humble brag.
Humble brag. Just so you guys know, I got nice legs. No,
We're talking about that.
you know, it's like I have to be careful. Like when we hit some of our like, you know, some of our songs that really mean something to me, like Gold and Lullabies and all those, like I actually have to be careful when I'm singing, like, because I'll always kind of like word them out, voice them out, mouth the lyrics. Yeah, right. So I have to be careful, like not to make, because if I make too much eye contact, it'll hit me, and I'll be like, oh shit, I got like, I'm gonna start tearing up here. So I have to be careful when I'm doing that to like not look too deeply into someone's soul. Right.
But that's beautiful too, man. I mean, that's why we're all here. That's why we do this shit.
Exactly.
Like, at least for me, music was always a way, and hearing you talk about being introverted and all that, I feel a connection. I relate to that strongly, because when I was a kid even, I mean, that's what music was for me, was a way to sort of connect, get out of my shell, even just connect deeper to myself. I mean, full disclosure, I was watching the Beyonce Netflix documentary earlier today, and like I cried a little bit. Yeah, it's like, you know, I was just sitting in my house by myself, like all the lights were on.
It's like an aid, you know,
it's
like
crazy.
And it could be so specific too, which is so. It's like it's just emotional depth,
and what you
it's
were
like
saying,
packaged emotional depth.
And what you were saying too about like seeing someone else having that reaction, it immediately brings you there
instantly.
I don't know, man. It's the only way I've found, literally the only way I've found in life to connect with people on that level
outside of your own head. Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I don't know. It's a beautiful thing.
It's like an aid. Like it's like it presents the emotions, and then you know you feel safe feeling the same emotion as the person in front of you, because that's like that buffer.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at this person, and you know you feel safe to feel what they're feeling, and you kind of expressing it together. You know, the introverted mind, you're always calculating, and you're always hyper aware of yourself, and I think a lot of it just has to do with kind of like social anxieties in this, right? So like you never want for yourself to be judged, right? So you know, you feel safer knowing that, like, I know you're feeling what I'm feeling, so I can connect with you. You know, it feels safer. I think that, like 100%. I said, it's a buffer. Yeah.
Well, this has been great. On that note, I'll wrap it up. There's a question I ask at the end of every episode, so I'll ask. You guys can answer individually. Don't have to think about it too hard. Kind of the first thing that pops into your head. Just a time in your life, and this could be something recently, it could be something from when you were a kid, whenever, when in a moment, music really deeply affected you. And that's meant to be a really broad question. You can kind of interpret it as you like, and doesn't have to be significant. Kind of just the first thing that pops into your head.
The first thing that popped into my head was a drive I was doing. You know, I was probably around 17, 18. I think I was driving from Montreal, driving from Montreal to Toronto. Yeah. Alone, you know, for us introverts to feel things. And I was listening to Portishead. Yeah. Dummy. Is it Dummy? The album? Yeah. The album's getting like the full
Legendary.
album. And I was just kind of looking at the trees, and I remember this, it's so clear, but it's just, you know, I think there's moments, and I think everyone has these moments where you just feel just like a profoundness, you know? Like, it's just like, you know, whatever you're feeling takes a couple extra jumps farther in the direction of, you know, something you're used to. And it's just so new, and it's so deep, so profound, right?
Yeah.
And so intricate. And
driving's really good for that too. Yeah, it's like a meditation almost.
I had like an almost out of body experience just listening to Portishead and driving and looking at the trees. And it was like, I think it was probably fall. And I don't know. It's almost like my soul like woke up a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
And I still remember that. Yeah.
I have so many moments like that. I love hearing that. And for me, who's not really like a drug guy.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I've always felt like that is probably what it's like on certain drugs I haven't tried.
But you know, when it happens naturally, I'm never going to be one to judge. But for me, from my personal standpoint, when it happens naturally, it feels like it's that much of a greater, like a higher achievement.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Absolutely, man. That's beautiful. Layton, what about you?
I think for me, it was, early on in my high school life, this was probably at the pinnacle of like body weight issues, self-confidence issues, where like I really cared about every little thing everyone would say just about me as a person or the weight I had on me back then. Yeah. I think that night it was getting to a point where enough was enough. And Cat Power, The Greatest, came on shuffle. And that song, I think, was the song. Like, that was my eureka moment. After I was done listening to it the next day, I think I had a mental shift and everything became more clear. And I realized that I wasn't, like, I couldn't if I couldn't change how these people were going to view me, the only thing I could do was change how I viewed myself and me towards them. And I think from that moment on is when I decided to go on this path of like growth and emotional development.
Wow. That's crazy that you can pinpoint a single moment.
I've never heard that. I've never heard Layton tell that story, and I know I haven't told that story to Layton. So it's pretty cool. It's like we're learning about each other here too.
Hell yeah, that's beautiful, man. Well, this has been really fun. I'm really glad we linked up to do this.
Me too.
And I would love to do a part 2. Let's do it down the line.
Absolutely.
All right, take care, guys. Peace.
Love you.
Peace and love.
All right, that's the show. Shout out to Adventure Club. I love you guys. It was so fun getting to catch up like that. Don't forget, for everybody out there listening, Adventure Club, Crankdat, and Krewella, the single is called Next Life, and it's out right now. The link to that and all of their tour dates, everything Adventure Club, is in the description of this episode. My name is Willy Joy. You can also hit me up anytime you want. Any questions, concerns, worries, comments, backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address. Or you can hit me at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod on all social media. That's it for this week. I got to run. I got to go set up for this show in Chicago. Recording a couple new episodes while I'm out here too. Can't wait to share it with everybody out there. I hope you're doing well. If you can hear my voice right now, shout out to you for supporting the show. Make sure to spread the word. Let your friends know what we're doing over here. Put up a post, tag me in your story, put up a tweet, any of that. I love interacting with everybody who's listening. I love meeting everyone out there, and I will talk to you next week. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.